Chapter 5: The Last Athlete in the Metaverse. The Future of Sport. In order to protect the integrity of global sports competitions and for the safety of all the participants, the IOC-EB Executive Board recommends that international sports federations and sports event organisers not invite or allow the participation of Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials in international competitions. IOC statement after the invasion of Ukraine in early 2022. You didn't win silver, you just lost the gold. This was a mantra of a colleague of mine some years back, and it remains quite a good indication of the toxic workplace I was in at the time. This mentality that we need to be the best or we're nothing really grates on me. It has no place in a tech-positive, egalitarian future. I think it is one of the reasons we idolise professional sports people more than scientists and technologists. We need to celebrate scientists the way we celebrate sports, but that is going to take a major shift in culture. What is the future of sport anyway? With arguments about the shoe spikes runners were wearing at the Tokyo 2020 Summer Olympics and the furore around gender identity and testosterone levels in women's sports, it's clear that a lot will change in the next few years. Interaction between biology and technology, down to the cellular and even subcellular level, is now being researched in labs around the world. Things move really fast, especially when money can be made. And there is a lot of money in sport. Tech doping and human-robot interaction. In the 1985 James Bond movie A View to a Kill, thoroughbred horses are doped mid-race in a way that is undetectable. It turns out they're receiving microchip-controlled drugs developed by a Nazi scientist working for the bad guy. It's funny how I remember this more than any other part of the film. I guess it intrigued me as a teenager, the idea that computers were able to work inside the body. In another movie, Inner Space, US Navy pilot Tuck is shrunk to the size of a red blood cell and placed in a special pod which then travels around people's bodies, including that of his own girlfriend, and he discovers she is pregnant. Piloted or automated robots working inside our bodies to cure us of diseases or perform diagnostics might once have been the realm of science fiction, but as nanomedicine advances, such ideas have become more and more credible. We won't be shrinking Dennis Quaid in real life anytime soon, though. If we can use technology to target drug delivery live during a competition, maybe even just giving a glucose boost in a way that is undetectable, anti-doping agencies should be concerned. Add bionics into the mix, and we really could go deep down the rabbit hole and never come out. I have a bad feeling that this will make the works of Lance Armstrong and his team of cheaters look like a cheap trick. He was at least using his own bodily fluids when he loaded himself up with red blood cells. What if he'd had access to nanomedicine-based technologies, operating on the size and scale of DNA and CRISPR, gene editing technology? A colleague of mine has suggested that the technology readiness level, a method developed by NASA of describing the maturity of technologies on a scale of 1 to 9, of highly personalised tech doping, is at the top rung, level 9, and will soon be uncontrollable. They say we therefore have only two options left. Ditch professional sport altogether, or accept that everyone is tech doping, in which case sport becomes a test of a team's or country's tech doping capability as well as athlete performance. But I don't think we need to give up and accept this yet. Doping is still so vilified that sponsors and supporters would be likely to just walk away if it became the norm. The best way to proactively support professionals in this area is to ride the first wave of these technologies. If we, as a society, can own and develop them, we can also understand how to detect them. I do wonder, though, if we'll ever see an honesty system with tech and non-tech Olympics and Paralympics. There are already positive examples of new sports that combine humans and robotics. For example, the Cybathlon, which took place for the first time in 2016, tests both human performance and tech performance. It also places a spotlight on the current and emerging technologies available to increase accessibility for those who need it for day-to-day activities. There are 6 major competitions in the Cybathlon covering a gamut of technologies. 1. Brain-Computer Interface (BCI) race. Pilots with quadriplegia use brain-computer interfaces to control avatars in a computer game. 2. Functional Electrical Stimulation bike race. Using electrical stimulation, pilots with paraplegia perform a pedalling movement on a recumbent bicycle. 3. Powered Arm Prosthesis race. A race for pilots using an arm prosthesis on one or both sides, which has to include the wrist and can be navigated with any kind of control. 4. Powered Leg Prosthesis race. Pilots use a leg prosthesis on one or both sides that includes a knee joint, have to perform various movements. 5. Powered Exoskeleton race. Pilots with complete thoracic or lumbar spinal cord injury compete using a wearable powered exoskeleton, which enables them to walk and master other everyday tasks. 6. Powered Wheelchair race. Pilots with a severe walking disability use a powered wheelchair to overcome obstacles such as stairs or doors. It is wonderful to see these diverse teams of bionics and robotics researchers working alongside each other to make life better for people with disabilities. This connectivity between people and technology is becoming more intimate every year. The ways in which these technologies can be used for good may seem obvious, but current technologies are still too expensive to be accessible to all the people who want to use them. As these are exponentially advancing technologies, I'm really hoping that the costs start to come down soon, so those whose lives would be improved by them can access them, either privately or through government support. Tech for training and recovery. Athletes don't just wear technology during competitions, but also during training, and my goodness, we have come a long way fast. I don't exercise nearly as much as I should, and I'm desperately trying to find ways to drop my baby weight and COVID kilos. Now that I'm in my 40s, I also worry about living a long and healthy life to see my children grow up. I know that exercise is good for me. I just really struggle with time management, motivation, and energy, especially with 2 kids under 5. So, thinking it was the best idea ever, I bought a Fitbit. I mean, who hasn't? Right now, I can't even tell you where mine is since moving house, but I know it's packed away somewhere in one of the boxes in my office, and I should probably find it because it was not cheap. I thought data would act as a motivator for me, that I would compete with myself on cardio minutes and steps walked and calories eaten. I did for a while, but then it dropped off a cliff into the sea of wishful habits and good intentions. Although I am far from a professional athlete myself, I can really see the value in accessing constant information around training and activity to help inform peak performance and recovery. Many rugby and soccer players now wear devices that collect convergent health data and GPS location data when training and playing, and this data can be used to determine the tactics that work and the areas where an individual is at most risk of injury. It can also be used mid-match to select and swap out players who are fatigued. The Australian Institute of Sport has an online athlete management system where you can plug in data from different devices and film across multimodal platforms to help inform training regimes. The gladiatorial nature of some sports will change as lawyers, insurance companies, and legislators get involved. Boxing has always been known as a sport where people purposely try to knock each other out, which can lead to head injuries. In sports such as boxing, rugby, and Australian rules football, the frequent and until recently accepted instances of head and brain damage may become a thing of the past. Not through smart headgear, but through multi-million-dollar lawsuits and compensation schemes. Small but frequent head injuries, even though they may feel like nothing significant at the time, can cause irreversible brain damage. This is called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. It's when a protein called tau malfunctions and causes other proteins to misfold, which then sets off a brain death chain reaction. Scientists are only just starting to understand this insidious issue, but are able to work on it thanks to the hundreds of military personnel and athletes who have donated their brains to the research teams. CTE can result in serious problems that reveal themselves many years after the last match has been played, such as early onset dementia, drug addiction, and domestic violence. Out of more than 1,000 brains that have been donated to date by people who suffered long careers of having their heads knocked about 2/3 have been diagnosed with CTE. So what does CTE have to do with technology? Well, once we understand what is happening with frequent low-level head injuries, we can then monitor and measure them. Around the world, we have comprehensive workplace health and safety requirements that have a foundational aim to prevent illness, injury, and death at work, which for professional athletes means training sessions and competitive games. There are young athletes today who are undergoing brain MRI scans to detect CTE as early as possible. Depending on what's discovered, it is possible that head injuries will not only kill brain cells, but also some of the world's most loved professional sports. Identifying natural athletes. Another aspect of professional sports in which technology has a significant role to play is in the pre-selection, scouting, and selection phases. Can you imagine being chosen to train in a professional sport because you have a genetic and phenotypic predisposition to greatness in that sport? Like swimmer Michael Phelps's wingspan, or gymnast Simone Biles's jump height, there are some physical traits we can identify early to work out whether you have a natural predisposition for sporting excellence. This may be one of the outcomes of the data from mass surveillance. AI-based processes can pick up biophysics and use it to predict a disease, but the same AI could be used to predict physical capabilities. Would you want mass surveillance scouting in your child's school for the next set of medal winners? Esports. It's not only the traditional sports we grew up with that are being transformed by tech. Esports is the collective term for competitive-level computer gaming. Although organised competitions have long been a part of video game culture, these were largely between amateurs until the late 2000s, when esports grew through professional gamers, sponsorship and huge spectatorship into an industry worth an estimated $1 billion Australian dollars. It might sound surprising, but computer games are worth more globally than movies and music combined. Gaming doesn't only happen at home these days. Professional game tournaments fill entire sports arenas and attract crowds of tens of thousands, particularly in countries such as South Korea. It's on my bucket list to see such a spectacle. 16-year-old Kyle Giersdorf won some $3 million in 2019 playing popular online game Fortnite. I bet his parents don't discipline him for too much time spent playing computer games. Esports currently involve human hands on joysticks and controllers, but could soon involve the brain-computer interface, BCI. As far as I know, no gamer has yet had a controller actually embedded in their brain, but the concept of deep immersive virtual reality, VR, and the potential for new business growth caught the attention of Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, and back in 2014, he bought VR startup Oculus VR for a cool $2 billion. Zuck's press release quoted him as saying, "It was a way to enable even more useful, entertaining and personal experiences." VR headsets were originally forecast to be big in the social media, networking and even online dating worlds. But what about sports? When Formula One F1 driver Lewis Hamilton came on the scene in the 2000s, he said that while he'd never driven a particular circuit in a race, he had already been around it thousands of times in his head. He had watched hours and hours of footage taken from racing cars, so his body would know where the corners were. This was before the deep, immersive VR experiences used in sports training simulators today existed. There are now full-on, suited-up, fully immersive training experiences in which you can run around like you're in another world. You can win that race because you've raced it more times than your competitors. You can score that seemingly impossible goal because you've scored that goal thousands of times before. This is all great for rich countries with access to these technologies, but will a digital divide increase inequity in the sporting world? VR is not quite doping, but it still provides a huge technical advantage. A common theme when it comes to new technology is that the law is often lagging, and it's no different for esports. For example, Laws around advertising, particularly to children, have not been applied to esports in the same way as traditional sports because esports is considered a completely different activity, but this to me is completely illogical. It's puzzling how laws that are so sensible and necessary are waylaid. If you can't advertise fast food near my kids' school, then you shouldn't be able to advertise it to them in their own bedrooms. Sports and the Metaverse. The future of sport might include not just humans that are more like robots, but also robots that are more like humans. Robot Wars was a very popular TV series in the UK that ran for a few years from the late 1990s to the early 2000s and was rebooted in the late 2010s and was pretty good fun. Teams developed robots to fight each other in a pit. I can't say it was very gender diverse, but it wasn't offensive. It was just like a futuristic but a much less disturbing version of cockfighting. I find it interesting that the show developed a cult following. For me, anything that gets people interested in science and engineering is a win, and it was fun to see the teams coming together and really loving their robots. If we were to consider a modern version of Robot Wars, would it be based in reality or in the Metaverse? The term Metaverse first appeared in Neil Stephenson's 1992 dystopian novel Snow Crash. The Metaverse is a virtual place you've seen before in science fiction movies such as The Matrix or Ready Player One. It is a permanent, online, immersive environment that isn't owned by anyone in particular. Or is it? Twitter is a good example of a rudimentary metaverse where celebrities and trolls are equally as connected to potentially every other user or bot on there. Humans as avatars can build businesses, meet others, and even play sports. The metaverse could be the world of your dreams or of your nightmares. When I think of the future of the metaverse, I imagine all the people asleep in the movie Inception. They were choosing to live in their dreams because the real world was so painful or boring. How terrible would it be if reality faded into grayscale in the face of a hyper-real and gloriously technicolor fake world? Maybe the metaverse would be a place we could upload our brains, so we could in effect live on after our bodies have expired. There are now entire soccer teams made up of AI-enabled robots competing in technology games such as the Robo Cup. In the metaverse, we could also have sports teams made up of AI-enabled avatars. After IBM's supercomputer, Deep Blue, beat human grandmaster Garry Kasparov at chess in the 1990s, and then some years later, Google's AI platform AlphaGo beat KG in the more complex game of Go, we are now seeing the rise of AI versus AI. Would you find humans playing esports more interesting than watching two AIs take each other on at chess? In the 1983 movie War Games, the US military created a computer to work out how to beat the USSR in the event of a nuclear war. The computer almost hits the red button but is stopped. The feisty young protagonist challenges the AI to fight only with itself to see who would win, and as it iterates all the ways in which the game could be played, it realises that no matter how it uses the US nuclear arsenal, everyone loses. All these wonderful inventions and wearable tech devices will certainly change the way we see sports in the future, literally in some cases. The key thing it drives in me, though, as a mother of two small boys, is an inherent desire to take my kids to the nearest park to just kick a ball around a bit, for no other reason than for the pleasure of hanging out with each other. Get back in the driver's seat. How will we be physically interacting with our children in the next decade? In truth, the way children grow and develop is such a physical thing. My bet is that we will move our families further away from technology in order to maintain genuine connections. We'll diverge from the games console and back to Mother Nature. Being physically active can now be mimicked on a biochemical level by a pill, but metabolic pills don't make your kids giggle insanely the way they do when they launch a kite for the first time or score a goal against their dad. Playgrounds are not going virtual anytime soon. Remember, moderation when introducing technology into the mix, and think about both the physical and mental ramifications of a lack of exercise. Obesity rates in the Western world are soaring. The COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns really made us appreciate being able to get out of the house and exercise. Habits are hard to form, so make sure you give yourself the gift of moving your body as much as you'd like. As far as professional sports are concerned, Enjoy them while they last. Some may change or disappear this decade, and prepare yourself for stories of tech doping from the most surprising and unpredictable places and people.